Today's episode is sponsored by Grub Gone. What's hiding beneath the surface of your turf? Organically and naturally treat for turf grubs now before you have a big problem this summer and fall. With the powerful BTG active ingredient protein and 1,000 times more spores than milky spore products, Grub Gone works at the level of the chemicals but selectively targets and kills turf grubs without harming bees, butterflies, earthworms, birds, kids, or pets. Target the pest, not the rest.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Let's Argue About Plants, the podcast for people that love plants, but not always the same ones. I'm Carol Collins. I'm the associate editor at Fine Gardening magazine, and today I am joined by Irvin Etienne. Irvin is the curator of herbaceous plants and seasonal garden design at Newfields in Indianapolis. Welcome to the podcast, Irvin.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here, Carol. It's kind of an honor to say the least. So, fine gardening and a podcast all at the same time.
Well, we're so happy to have you. And I have been asking the same first question. We've been doing these interviews now for a few months, and I've been asking everybody the same first question, which is, can you please tell us a little bit about the earliest memories of gardening and if there were any pivotal experiences on your life that led you toward this path of designing with plants and working with plants?
Ooh, earliest memories. Some of my earliest memories is actually going out into the fields and picking spring greens with my mother, as far as true plant related things. Then let's see, skip from that to I don't know, 8 or so years old. I had my own little section in the garden. I grew some stuff from seeds. I remember the petunias, but I don't remember much else. It was back when you could order a box of seeds and you could sell them to other people. Back in the time of real mail and everything. That's some of the earliest as far as my memories of it. We always had a garden. And there was always, despite needing to feed 11 people, my mother always put in a section of flowers every year. There'd be marigolds, mostly marigolds and zinnias that she would save seed from every year. We had the same one for decades. So those are my earliest memories of that kind of thing.
Very cool. Did you grow up in Indiana?
I grew up in southern Indiana on a farm. I always say we lived on a farm. We didn't necessarily live off the farm. The vegetables were very important, to say the least. But yeah, southern Indiana, which, halfway explains the accent, if not entirely.
It's a little bit like the South, right? I mean, it's Midwest, but also...
For some of us, yes, for some of us. I grew up in southern Indiana is very hilly, and one of my favorite aunts used to tell these stories when she was young. And if you ever read the Foxfire books that came out of, I think, University of Tennessee, where they went and interviewed the old people in Appalachia, some of her stories sound like that. So there is that, yeah, you're getting the Midwest and you're getting some of that Southern stuff too. And I prefer to embrace it than ignore it.
Very good. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about your design or horticulture education? What got you into this from an education standpoint?
It really, I first went to school right out of college, right out of high school, and that didn't turn out so good. I was like the most naive 18-year-old that was ever birthed. But anyway, so I quit college and I worked other jobs for almost 10 years before I went back. And my original major was animal sciences, because I'm into the animal thing. But when I got ready to go back, I was into the gardening by then, doing a lot of gardening at home and everything, which was a real advantage when I got to college full time. But when I was deciding on what to do to be perfectly honest about it all. It was like, as a gay man, where did I want to be? Did I want to be in a feedlot in Nebraska? Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe today, but not in the 80s, certainly. And so it was like, okay, I'll go towards horticulture. And I chose the public horticulture route. You can get into public horticulture from any route of horticulture. It's not required to have a public horticulture degree, and not very many places offer that anymore even. But I first semester woody plant course, it was like feeding candy to a child. I could not get enough of it. And because I had the experience coming in late, well, I knew what a lilac was. So when we had 3 lilacs, I knew that they were lilacs. So all I had to do was figure out which of the 3 I was looking at. Same way, with a lot of the trees and shrubs that way. So it was a real advantage to come in as a 28-year-old instead of an 18-year-old. It worked out really well for me. And from there, it's just landing at the right place at the right time, probably. And the only other thing I could say, if people are thinking about going into it, internships, and try different kinds of gardening. Because I'll tell you right now, public horticulture at Newfields compared to public horticulture at a zoo, very different things. Very different people, very different animals. And I did an internship at a zoo. It was great. And I thought I would do zoo horticulture at one point. But that's not the way life leads you down many paths. You never know which one is going to be the one you stay on. So.
Very cool. So you would recommend internships to people coming in more than like a formal agriculture education?
I'm still a little bit old school. Some formal education isn't going to hurt you. But certainly if you already are in a career or something and you're not ready to make that kind of a commitment, it's a great way to find out if this is really what you want to do. It's one, I think a lot of people think, oh, I grow 6 tomatoes every year and I grew marigolds for my mother in a Dixie cup in the 3rd grade, so I know what horticulture is. Well, honey, you don't. And so it's just such a good way to learn the field and find out what you really like and don't like. I just have been around more people that probably did some formal education, not necessarily horticulture. You may be some other sciences or whatever. But no, you do not have to get a degree in horticulture. But you need to know your plants and you need to understand their needs. So
that makes
sense. I don't know if that answers any of the questions or not.
I think it does. I think it does. Can you tell us how long you've been working at Newfield? Some people might remember it, as I do when I first met you, as the Indianapolis Museum of Art, but yes. Now it's Newfields. How long have you been there?
I've been there, it'll be 32 years, July 1st, so I've been here half my life, basically. Wow. We both changed a little bit over those years. As it's required, you change or you die. Simple as that.
Can you tell us what a curator of herbaceous plants and seasonal design does, and if there's any such thing as a typical day? Can you describe it?
Well, one thing you don't do is you don't write out that title very often. It's a long title. I don't know what other curators do because I don't follow that kind of thing. My title, it's my job. In addition, we all have our own areas to take care of here. If you were a horticulturist here, Carol, you would have a garden area that you took care of, and you'd be making most of the decisions about that area. You'd be choosing the plants that go in there and how they went in, where they went in, and everything. You would bring those ideas to me first, and we would talk about the possibilities. And if I know it's a plant that won't work, we're going to try to find something different. If it's a plant I know we've tried multiple times and killed multiple times, I'm going to want you to tell me what you are going to do different that it's going to live this time. But I don't go to you and say, Carol, here's a Monarda, put it in your garden. I want you to own that garden. I want that garden to look like you. I don't want this whole place to look like Irvin. Carol's area needs to look like Carol's. Patty's need to look like Patty's. James's needs to look like James. And so I, in addition to take care of my areas, I guide the other horticulturists in their plant selection and design. That's really all it is. To me, that's all it is. I don't want to tell people what to do necessarily, but kind of nudge them sometimes.
And it's quite a large campus. How big is it?
Well, total is 152 acres. 100 acres is the Fairbanks Art and Nature Park, and I really don't have much of anything at all to do with that. We have a whole team that deals with that. And then we have 52 acres on this side. Half of it, the historic Lilly Estate, and half of it, the contemporary part. At one time, I don't know if it's still true or not, we tried to give everybody a little bit of both areas so that you had, because there can be a few restrictions in the historic area. We're not super, we believe more in sticking with the design intent than the exact plant selection, because many plants that were used in the 20s turn out not to be such great plants to have in the garden or the environment. So we adapt for that situation. And plus you have to adapt when you go from a private garden to a public garden where you're having thousands and thousands of people. The same thing, a grass path will die very quickly. And you want to have everything as accessible as possible, so as many people as possible can enjoy it and everything. So I don't know where I was going with all that. I've lost my train.
But it's a big campus.
The 52
and a lot
acres,
of people, yeah.
And nowadays, almost everybody has some containers to work with. So you really get to, I say play with, but you get to experiment with a lot of different kinds of plants that way. And so everybody is doing woody plants, perennial plants, annual plants, bulbs. You really got the opportunity to work with so many varieties of plants. It's, I think, kind of unusual in a lot of public gardens that you get that each individual horticulturist gets that much, freedom.
Interesting. You gave a talk a while back called Gardening in Public.
Oh.
and I mean, I think it's a great way to for people that aren't, in your world to understand kind of what you do. Like every decision you make is immediately on display.
Yes.
But so are there any lessons or tricks that you've learned from working in public that you think home gardeners might find useful?
Own your mistakes and don't be too ashamed of them. But I'd say some things is have you a few workhorse plants in that garden. Great to experiment. I want to experiment. I want everybody working with me to experiment and everything. But while you're experimenting, have some plants in that garden that are going to be good year to year and fill in and do a job so that the entire garden doesn't look rough the whole time. Another thing, you learn that the importance of foliage, for instance, that the flowers frequently don't stick around a long time. And so think about the foliage whenever you're designing and when you're trying to choose. I feel like people can walk through and there's going to be some part of a public garden that matches their home garden more than likely, and think about, well, this is working here, so maybe this could work at my place as well. Public gardens are just a great educational opportunity for folks. They really should take advantage of it, because we have parts of our garden that are nearly 100 years old. We have other parts that are right next to brand new construction. So we deal with construction soil same as everybody else, because you can have a contract written up beautifully and you'll still get your soil destroyed. The words are beautiful, but you can't control everything.
Absolutely.
much as I despise that fact.
Especially construction.
Especially construction, because we were doing this work one time, and some guy got his machine stuck, and he wrapped chains around our upright ginkgos to pull himself out of the mud. Killed 2 or 3 of them, and just like, what were you thinking? And that happens in a second, and you can't always be there every second, and you've got to just learn to ride with it. You'll find a solution to whatever it is, and it's the same way in your home garden. It's this god awful soil that has been dealt. You've been dealt. You'll figure out a way to make it work somehow. I'm not. There's that whole right plant, right place thing. And I know there's some people that they look at the conditions first and choosing the plants for that. But I'm kind of like, I want what I want. So I'll have the plants that I want, and then I'll go through those plants and go, yeah, no, you'll never do it. You might. You have a really good chance. You're highly questionable. So you can get to that same place from either way. That may not have been your question, and that maybe you did not know that, but.
That makes perfect sense.
The important thing is you're still realizing your conditions. Yeah. You're not going into it, I have to have this no matter what. No, princess, you ain't getting that. So.
I follow you on social media. You have a great social media feed. And recently you were talking about some tulips, I think, or flowering bulbs, and you're trying to match them to a piece of art. And I think that's a little different than most of us deal with. But how do you find the right color when all you have to go from are maybe catalog pictures or photos online?
Yeah. And every catalog is a lie, and every internet site is a lie. They're just playing with your emotions. You just have to do the best you can and hope for the best. Yeah, and I know this myself. I run, I go ahead and put myself through the emotions anyway, even though I know the truth of it all is that you can't control the plant colors. They're going to be what they're going to be. And you can't go out and see every plant growing in the field to know its true color. You just have to do the best you can. And most people won't notice it. You in your own garden, you might put something together and you're like, oh my God. But all your friends that come over are just going to think, oh, Carol's garden is so pretty. They're not going to, it just doesn't register with them. Which is good, and it shouldn't register with them. It's not their place in the world for it to register with them. But for me, I was trying to match the red, yellow, white, and green in the Robert Indiana numbers 140, and so all my flower colors are going to be red, yellow, green, white, and my 2 reds are not sinking up in my eyes. From a distance, it's okay, but when I get up closer, it's like, oh, dang it. And then, worst of all, you see stock in Helen's area, and it's the right shade of red, and you didn't buy that one, or it's closer. So it's part of the problem is that ranunculus ended up not being as pure or red, and as it fades, there's a little bit of a brick red to it. And then the stalk is kind of a purple red, but big picture, it's not important, and it'll be okay. And we don't do that sort of thing very often, but we were celebrating our 140th anniversary, and we put the numbers out there. So it made sense. And again, as you approach and everything, and it does work. It just, I am very demanding of what I do.
Yes, you see things other people do not see.
Yeah, and that's the way it should be. The other people should just get to enjoy it and
Yeah.
not jumping from a big red truck like some of us do. But anyway, we don't do that sort of thing. We have this loom exhibition where you're immersed in the art. Van Gogh was the first one, I think, was done around the country and everything. And we'll pull some little piece from that frequently and do a bed or two of that. Different ones of us will interpret it in whatever way we see. But otherwise, out in the gardens, we don't do a whole lot of that. It just depends on the year and the timing.
Yeah, but it's cool that you work in a garden that is also kind of an art museum.
Right. I mean, you don't find too many places where you have the art museum, a historic estate, a contemporary garden, and an art and nature park all in the same spot. So you can get a lot here with one visit. So come visit.
Absolutely. And let me just tell the audience, do not miss the winter show too. You guys have winter lights. It's like winter a year-round thing now.
Rather incredible.
Yeah.
So that runs in the late fall to early January. So, and we do harvest now too. Kind of it's not Halloween. It's a harvest thing. So many pumpkins of so many varieties. So it's pretty neat.
Oh, that sounds great.
And they all come from a grower up in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So they're basically local too.
Oh, fantastic.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Embrace that agricultural. Yeah.
It is us.
Very cool. Let's talk about your home garden.
Okay.
When I first met you, we were shooting photos for an article on bulbs in containers, which I think was the first time you and I had worked together.
Yes, it was.
And I will drop a link to that awesome article in our show notes so people can read it. But after that photo shoot, you had to go back to work, and you just gave me your address so I could go see your home garden. And it was very clear as soon as I pulled up which house on that block. I didn't need the street address because I could tell the one with the ginormous banana plants out front. That was Irvin's.
Yeah.
Could you describe that garden, that Indianapolis garden, for the folks at home? And I will put some of the photos that I took into the show notes as well.
Okay. Well, it was a little 1885 house, decent sized lot, really, to be so close to downtown. The back garden, especially, was a nice long area there. It had lawn and a couple crab apples in the front, a couple clumps of maybe a clump or two of lycores still alive, some climbing roses that were actually the rootstock of tea roses, and that was about it in the garden, I think. And within a few years, I had no turf left or anything else, and it was garden from from front sidewalk to back alley and from side to side, completely chock full of plants. And it was fun. I got to experiment a lot. I had a privacy fence in the back because I wanted privacy. It's hard to live with people on top of you all the time sometimes. I put that privacy fence up, and within a year or so, the neighbors put a deck off the back of their yard, and they could see right over the top of the fence into my yard.
They didn't want to miss out.
They did. Those folks did enjoy the garden a lot and everything. But anyway, it was just, again, all kinds of woodies, perennials, lots of tropicals, of course. And because I was close to downtown, and I think the fence helped as well, Zone 7 plants were coming through for me on frequently almost, and an occasional Zone 8 I could get through. It was a great place to experiment with hardiness zones because it was so protected. I had lots of spots I could experiment with and everything. It was a crappy little house, trust me. It was oh my God. In truth, it was a disaster that shouldn't have been purchased, but it worked out well.
And you did back then, and you still do a lot of tropical plants, which a lot of people dismiss as being too much work, but you are not most people. You did an excellent article, I think maybe the second one we worked on together, about overwintering plants, called Bring It In.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'll drop a link to that one in our notes as well. But can you give us sort of a rough estimate of how many tender plants you typically bring in from your home garden in winter, not even counting Newfields?
Carol, we don't ask people questions like that.
Hundreds, thousands, what is it?
But just for you, I went down into the basement last night and counted. Kind of. I got up to close to 150 pots, boxes, and bags. That's dormant stuff, not living stuff. That's the dormant stuff. And so a box or a bag could have anywhere from 1 to 20 plants in it. But well, you stuff a lot of dahlias in a big box.
Yeah.
And, a clump of cannas that's 18 plus inches across, when you go to plant it in the spring, if the world is kind and most of it lives, you can divide that into several plants. And that's part of my goal. I probably bring in more than I would have to, though I have to have them all. That's a lie. I have to have them all. But by bringing in so many, it's insurance. So if this doesn't work out, this bag died on me. Something, it stayed too wet or whatever. Because I'm not real, once they're in the house, I'm not real fussy. I'm not going down there and checking on you all the time. It's just like putting them in the garden. You look at them, you go, live or die, it's your choice. The stuff that is potted up, like my manihots, now those have to get a little water all winter. And the brugmansias need a little water over winter. My one brugmansia is extremely angry right now. It may or may not make it. But then it should have bloomed more for me, and then maybe I would love it more and I'd take better care of it. Give and take, give and take. But anyway, otherwise, if they all were requiring a lot of constant care, the system would fail very, very quickly. But by the fact that most of them can go dormant and they're okay, I can make it work with those kind of numbers. I counted it up, and I have something almost 70 plants that are alive and growing that will go out into the garden, and another 50 or so that will go out but stay in pots.
So there's some that just stay in pots all the time.
Yeah.
So you can bring them in.
And most of those are plants that are drought tolerant and full sun plants, because they're going to go on the front porch, and I know you need water, but you're not getting any. It's 8:30. I need to be in bed by 10 if I want to get 7 hours of sleep tonight.
Yeah.
And you gotta take care of yourself a little bit there. I quit doing the end containers for a long time because it was just too much work. And that was at the old garden. And then after a few years at the new one, I finally got out some of my nice ceramic containers and potted a few of them up. But it's, everybody has their own thing that they like and they want to do or whatever, and that's what they should do. I don't know if this is the right time to talk about this or not. I don't necessarily advocate for people to garden like I do. Even when I do a garden on tropicals, I don't expect anybody to garden like I do, because they're just not batshit crazy enough to do it. but you can get little bits and pieces out of that. And you could do a container based on something you see or whatever. But, you know, I think people should do what they love, what brings them joy, what brings them peace, what brings them whatever, euphoria, anything. If all you want to do are some tomato plants, then just do tomato plants. Ignore me over here with the bananas and the cannas and the elephant ears. It's fine. I'm not trying to create more tropical gardeners. I'm just telling people about the plants I love and everything. And if that creates an interest, great. But if it doesn't, you just sit back there and go, he is batshit crazy. That's okay. I'm good with that. It's what I like, and as long as I can do it, I'm going to continue doing it. It'd be my guess. And I'm fully aware of everything going on around me. I'm fully aware of the changes in the climate. I'm fully aware of the concerns about water and everything, because that is truly the only downside, in my opinion, is the fact that you've got to water these plants to get them reestablished in the spring or early summer. And for the last good many years, it feels like to me that right about when I'm planting, late May, early June, we go into a dry period for 3 to 4 weeks that I don't remember happening in the past. Maybe it did and I just didn't care. And so I've got to be watering these things regularly during that period, which isn't ideal because it takes time. I'm on a well, I have my own water, that sort of everything, but it takes time, and I would rather not have to spend that time on that. I admit that. Mm-hmm. So again, we each have to choose what we're going to do with both our so-called discretionary incomes and our discretionary time and energies. And if you got it, then you can, put it into what you want in life.
Yeah, it's honestly...
I won't cut you for it necessarily, but don't cut me because I like what I like.
No, to me, it seems like you have more than 24 hours in your day, because I do not know how you get everything done that you do. You mentioned it in passing, but you recently bought a place out in the country, and you now have more space to garden outdoors. Also, right. Indoors, I think you now have a barn. So are you able to store plants in that barn? No. Okay. I was wondering, because are they still in your laundry room?
A few, yeah. Definitely. Oh, yeah.
Laundry room. Would be your Irvin's laundry room if there weren't some plants in there.
Laundry room, dining room, living room, both bedrooms, basement. There are plants, yes, everywhere. I have fewer in the living room this year than the last few years, actually. Trying to find a little more balance there where it's available, and kind of sacrificing some things that, you're nice, but you're really not that nice. I had some tropical hibiscus that just did not bloom at the level that I felt they should, because I have really good soil. It's a new place. So there's no reason. You got good soil. You've been taken care of. You should be giving me more blooms. Well, I have beautiful red perennial hibiscus. Why am I dragging your sorry ass in and out of my house to get 3 blooms when these things are perfectly happy out all the time and I don't have to do anything to them? So bye-bye. I kept the orange ones and that was it. The pink ones, which just were not a good shade of pink, that I ended up with, not entirely on purpose. It's you give up a few things there in that way and everything, but otherwise it's as far as storage is concerned, nothing much has changed, except I now have a basement that does not get water features when it rains a lot.
Seems good.
Real improvement. And the interesting thing, when I went shopping for this house for a new place, which was a case of where I either had to fix up my old house or move. That's what it came down to. Mm-hmm. I had serious things. And I had a contractor come over and looked at it. He gave me the numbers. And as he's leaving the door, he goes, but I'd sell. So I got a hold of my realtor then. Within 3 days, went to see the first house. This is August 18th of 2018. August 18th of 2019, I woke up in the new house. It took a full year to find this place. But I had 3 criteria, which I wanted a ranch, 3 acres, and a big barn. And I'd given up a basement because I didn't think I was going to find it. But I ended up with the ranch with the basement, the big barn, a 2.5 car detached garage in addition to a garage, and the 3 acres. So it's a little farther out than I planned. So it's, it's a 40-mile drive to work every day, morning and evening. So I'm losing nearly 2 hours a day commuting, which it has its effects. There's no doubt about that. But the flip side of that was, despite living in my old house for 20 plus years, as soon as I walked onto this property, it felt like home. And 20 plus years in the old house never was quite home, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
So the difference is incredible in that way. So, and I get a little bit of what I grew up with. I've got stars at night still and everything, better stars than I ever had in town, of course. And there's more light pollution than I was expecting out there. But still, I get that. I get some of that good from those times, from that past, that childhood. But I don't get the baggage from that same time.
Fair enough.
So,
okay. Yeah.
There's soak it in. When you can soak it in, soak it in.
Are there any downsides of gardening out in the middle of agricultural country? It's overspray from crops or anything like that?
My joking title for my property is dicamba. My friend Jamie even made a plaque for my mantelpiece that says, "Welcome to dicamba." But in truth, I've only seen damage one time. And, my friend Chad and Jen came with me when I went to look at that house, because I frequently had to bring people with me to look at houses because I'd see a piece of woodwork and be ready to buy the house. And the friends would be like, the bathroom's falling in, but look at that woodwork. Bathroom's falling in. Look at that. Anyway, we were walking around that place that night, and he goes, "You're trying not to smile, aren't you?" Because it was so perfect. But he asked the owners at the time, "Did you ever have crop damage?" And the reply the husband gave was just, "I figure they got to make a living too." And I chose to move out there, and I knew the possibilities. But like I said, so far, virtually no damages. One time I had this weird spotty damage that did not read to me at all why it occurred or how it occurred. I'm surprised that they still use crop dusting planes. That I did not expect. But it's all stuff I have, when they're out there spraying, I'm not going to walk through their spray to ask them, "What you spraying?" If I'm home and the windows are open, I close the windows and that kind of thing. But I chose to move into their world. Mm-hmm. It's so that but honestly, it has not been an issue. So pretty good there. The biggest thing is the wind. The wind just never stops. And it's a lot of wind. I planted some bare root arborvitaes one time, and then we had a bunch of rain. And the next day, almost all of them were laying flat on the ground because the wind just blew them over, and I had to stake them. And even after being staked for a couple of years, a couple of them still ended up leaning. It's just an unbelievable amount of wind, and which worries me when I'm trying to do broadleaf evergreens, which I don't, I'm in open country, broadleaf evergreens in central Indiana in open country, not a smart move. That said, I still planted me I knew it would happen. Magnolia grandiflora, Bracken's Brown Beauty, in the fall. How stupid is that? So I had a big piece of shade cloth. So I took some bamboo poles and made a frame around it and did a double wrap of shade cloth around it to protect it for the winter from the wind and everything. And we didn't have too bad of a winter this year. So it still has lots of leaves. The very tip, which was just barely below the shade cloth, is definitely showing some damage, but it's got most of the leaves are still on there. If I get me just 1 or 2 mild winters to get a root system set up, anything's possible. But they had planted some PJM rhododendrons around the house not long before I moved in. And some of those are still alive, which just boggled my mind, and they were kind of under the eaves, which also told me I've got some pretty good soil here because these things are surviving no matter what. So it's the pluses far outweigh the negatives. I mean, if I want to do stuff with coworkers after work or whatever, it's a long drive home later in the evening or whatever, and there's no running home and changing and then going out. If you're going out here in town, you bring your change with you or whatever, or you go someplace you don't have to change. But I'm not overly social anyway, so so it's, for the most part, weather-wise, it's the wind. And otherwise, there's not been a lot of issues, to be honest. Rabbits. I have rabbits for the first time, and deer for the first time. The deer was the biggest shock of all, because I'm like, you have all of this all around you. What the hell are you doing in my garden? It's rude to say the least. I just deep breath and push it out of your head and don't think about it for a little while. And then you see the damage. You're like, I had damage the second year I was out there, I think. And then this winter, one of them has been hanging around all winter. I see damage. That is unacceptable.
Yeah. They've got to make a living too.
No, they do not. There's a woodland over there and pasture. They can go over there. Go hang out with those cows that are miles south of me.
Yeah, what you have is way more interesting and delicious.
Yes, I'm sure.
I titled this episode "Making Plants Earn Their Keep" because I see you as someone who expects a lot from your plants. If you're gonna work this hard to keep them alive, they better do something for you. So I was wondering if you could tell us about a few plants that really earn their places in your garden.
Okay. A few the species that I just don't want to do without are the cannas, any of the bananas, and the elfin ear. So I always tell people, if you want to do a tropical look, that's the only 3 plants you need to remember, and then it gives you the look instantly. You need nothing else. I have a photo from my old garden. It just displays it perfectly. And that's just those 3 genera, not genuses, genera. Anyway, but cannas, I'm up to almost 5 favorite cannas now, probably. I love Pretoria, sometimes called Bengal tiger, old one. Faison, that was sold as Tropicana for a long time. And both of those, don't need flowers even. I like the flowers and I want the flowers, but you could live without them if you don't like the flowers your can is producing. All you got to do is cut them off. The can won't care. A manii, which isn't always easy to find. It's huge, plain green leaves with these incredible, they're just so luscious magenta flowers that hang down a little bit. They got a little bit of curve to the flower. I got those so happy one year. They were at least 8 feet tall, if not more, in my old garden. Daydream from Brian Williams down in Kentucky, Brian's Botanicals. It's one of his hybrids, and it's another big plant. Great big bronzy leaves with these large peachy flowers. It's just gorgeous and makes really big rhizomes and everything. I have 2 more species type, Tamatulupa, which has kind of gray-green leaves and a yellow flower, little yellow flowers with red specks on them, and Flaming Kebabs, which has red with a little bit of yellow on it. And those 2, all of those very attractive to hummingbirds in particular, and all of those are pretty vigorous growers. The problem is they're all propagated by rhizomes and everything, so all the cannaviruses and everything, people don't deal with them as much. So what you see on the market a lot are the Canova series, and those are good plants. So I don't poo-poo them. I use them a lot here at work. I don't use them much at home. Manihot Grammii, hardy tapioca for lack of a better name, just incredible texture to the leaves, and they make little trees in 1 year, and they self-sow in my garden. So technically I wouldn't have to dig them, but what if nothing came up the next year? Then where would I be? We cannot have that, so we are digging some of those. I left a lot of big ones in the ground this year, mulched them heavily, because some years, if it's a mild winter, I had them to overwinter one time. And if it happened one time, it could happen again. Good things can happen more than once, same as bad things. When the wind blows or the little breeze, it's almost like the leaves vibrate instead of just moving. It's just an incredible texture, especially when you can get up underneath them and look through it and everything. I'm hoping somebody out there in the world has a variegated one they want to give me. I'm sure they do. Let's see what else. Inseti Morellii, the Abyssinian banana. I love that thing. It's easy to overwinter. It can get huge, and when it gets huge, it gets heavy. That's one that can end up in the laundry room because it's too heavy to carry down the basement steps. I don't have any of that size right now. Siam Ruby banana, the Siam Ruby banana. It's a little trickier for me personally to overwinter. For some reason, I can't keep it happy in the dormant stage always. So sometimes I have to buy new ones of those. Dahlias, a couple of dahlias I really like are David Howard, which is a real old cultivar. It has kind of smoky flowers with a true traditional formal dahlia flower, not a dinner plate, just traditional. It's in these wonderful shades of peach and orange. It's just a gorgeous flower. It gets that foliage. The Mystic series, which is pretty new, is a really good series. I like Mystic Illusion because it has that incredible, pure, soft primrose yellow flower against the black foliage. Bishop Landaff, a great old cut leaf black foliage with red flowers, kind of, they call them, I think, peony flower. They don't have a whole lot of, not exactly a single, but they don't have a whole lot of petals. Let's see. Actually, I took a note because I knew I'd forget when I talked to you. Oh, that's everything I had a note on. So those are some that I almost always dig, not everything. So, and then there's some things that people dig every year that I consider to be hardy, so they stay in the ground.
And part of your secret, is it the rabbit manure that you mulch with? Because it seems like you get away with things that other people do not, and that's the one thing you do.
The mulching definitely helps. But part of the reason you get away with things is that you do it. Mm-hmm. You plant the plant and give it a chance. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? It'll die. Well, plants die every year. Your perennials can die, your shrubs can die. So what if the tropical plant dies? If it's some rare thing or some heirloom that's been passed on for 3 generations, yeah, you might want to hang on to that or propagate it so you can hang on with some of it or whatever. But stuff like pineapple lilies, I don't dig those. They stay in the ground, they come back. In my old garden, they were self-sowing. The salvias, like the Black and Bloom series, the Guaranitica series, anything with Guaranitica in it, it stays in the ground. And most of them turn out to be hardy even where I am. I have 3 or 4 different cultivars coming back at this point. Crinums. People don't think about crinum lilies as being hardy in the Midwest. They are. If I was zone 7, oh my God, zone 7. Oh, what a garden you could have in zone 7.
Are you zone 6?
We're 6.
Yeah,
they just bumped us up to full on 6 now. I'm 6A and Indianapolis is 6B because I'm farther out and everything. And I do, but stuff like those salvias, I try to mulch them every year. My crepe myrtles, I mulch because all you got to do is get them to survive. I'm never going to have crepe myrtle trees. I don't need them. Well, I want them, but I don't need them. But because they bloom on new growth. So as long as you keep them alive, they'll send up new growth and you'll get flowers anyway. Jasmine. Cestrum, like orange peel and lemon peel, perfectly hardy. I mulch them good, perfectly hardy, come back every year. Figs, I have figs that come back every year. And I get figs off of some of them. I have 2 cultivars. And the one cultivar, which I was told is brown turkey, don't know, it was here on our property in the greenhouses when I came here 30 plus years ago. So whatever it is what it is. I get edible figs almost every year off of those. And a lot of it's just giving it a whirl. Calla lilies, Hercules or giant white, they come back. It can be done. I had amaryllis come back last year that I planted in October the year before. You just don't know. Just throw it in the ground. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Or if it's something I'm just so tired of dragging these amaryllis in and out every year. Well, don't throw them in the way. Plant them, and if they come back, great. And if they don't come back, well, you gave them a shot. But the mulching does definitely help, and it enriches the soil, helps with soil structure. Anymore, they say if you have clay soil, if you have sandy soil, the solution is the same. More, what's that word? I can't find the word, Carol.
Organic matter?
More organic matter, that's it. More organic matter. So, which is what all the mulch is, really, in reality. I mean, it helps some with the weeds, but as well as I do, mulch does not kill dandelions. No. And mine, it doesn't stop the damn purple lamium from coming back. It finds a way, always. Doesn't stop the violets.
Yeah, that's true. I know you love your tropical plants, but it seems like the hardy plants have a place in your garden. Do you have any hardy shrubs, perennials, trees that you particularly love that go with your whole tropical thing?
I love the hardy hibiscus. They've done so much breeding on the hibiscus anymore. The length of bloom and amount of bloom in those new ones, especially, I'll say it, the ones coming out of Walter's Gardens, they're just loaded with flowers for weeks and weeks and weeks. I love all those. Oak leaf hydrangea, little honey with the chartreuse leaves. That's big, bold foliage too. Sambucus black lace or Sutherland's gold. I love those. Again, perfectly hardy, but incredible foliage. Nice bloom even on them. Tetrapanax is hardy for me. The paper rice bush, something like that. I don't know what it is today. I have steroidal giant. Last year, it started showing up in my turf, which was a little frightening. but I mowed it off, and those pieces died, so it was okay. It looks a little. It might be happy. Arundodonax. I have peppermint stick right now. I love Versicolor too. Versicolor doesn't hold the sharp variegation as long, but in the spring when it first comes up, it is whiter than peppermint stick. It has more white in it. What else do I have around the place? Magnolia macrophylla, the big leaf magnolia. One of those. It's gotten a little bit of growth to it now. That'll be fantastic in a few years. With 2-3 foot long leaves and giant 1 foot flowers. I have a native smoke bush, which again will kind of be a tropical looking thing in my opinion. It's my garden, so my opinion is the only one that matters. I put in, believe it or not, I was given 3 Fuego cottonwood trees. This is a burgundy leaf cottonwood. I cannot let those become actual trees. So
Will take over.
They will take over the world. So the first year I didn't have to prune them on them at all because they were young and small. Excuse me. Second year, I think the deer ate on them. Last year, I never got around to it. Maybe the year before, never got around to it. Only 24 hours in the day. Only 24 hours in the day, sadly. But this year, they got to get cut back. So cut back things are nice. I used to have Paulownia, what's that, Royal Princess tree or Princess tree. Mm-hmm. I love that thing. In my old garden, I can get 15 to 20 feet of growth of that in 1 year. Musabaju, the hardy banana. Easiest thing. I mean, that damn thing is practically becoming commonplace anymore. If now you're driving around and go, no, they got one too. And I'm experimenting with some more of the hardy bananas, trying to get more of those going. There's a few other species that would have worked in Fountain Square probably for sure, but maybe not out here.
It's the Irvin's chartreuse.
Oh, the
sumac.
Roost. Yeah,
is that named after you, or is it just
Yes.
a coincidence? Really?
No. My friend Sam Barr at the University of Maryland, it's a seedling from Tiger Eyes, but it has the normal foliage. And, he even offered it to companies to maybe put it on the market. And they were all like, no, it's too aggressive. And it is, it's aggressive. But it is so damn beautiful. I'm sorry. It is a beautiful plant. I've got to do a lot of editing of that this year. I think it was only 3 years ago. That was just a root piece. And I had shoots coming up 12 feet from the mother plant last year. Yeah, it's a full plant. But it's so beautiful for so long. Any of the, I used to have the Tiger Eyes, and I brought one plant with me. And in a pot, unfortunately ended up behind the garage, so I would forget to water it. It would get watered like once a month. It finally survived. I finally got it in the garden, and the deer ate on it. And it was just like, okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm dead. So, but the sumacs are great. Any of those are great. I did, again, just play with what you like and see. And I like the colored, plants with the colored foliage are certainly favorite. I've got some of the candy corn spirea, though I have to admit, I planted 3. I have 1 left is all, and I don't know why they're dying, but they are. And cut back things are nice. Takes a moment to cut them back. Yes, I know that, but you get that flush growth that's usually pretty incredible and everything. I put in I'm never going to remember the name. It's another not tropical tree, but it's gone. Anyway, I put it on the slope by the road. So it has got to be cut back. Once it's established, it looks like it's still alive, second year. And then that tea tree. Tea tree? There's a cultivar called Flamingo. It's supposed to have pink leaves when it comes out in the spring. Is that registering? I can't find common names today.
Oh, no.
Or scientific on that one. Anyway, I paid good money for that plant, plus good money for shipping. It came up last year. Not a single pink leaf anywhere to be seen. It's supposed to come out pink and then go green. And I'm not seeing any. And this is the second one I've tried. The first one was free. So I was fine. You can be a piece of crap if you're free. But I paid real money for this thing to have as a cutback. I didn't want to turn it into an actual tree, but I just used it as a cutback. And yeah, if it doesn't within a couple of years start producing pink, it will have to leave the garden.
That one is on probation.
It's on. Yeah, sorry. I can get plenty of green trees. That's not an issue for me.
Well, we have gone through a whole hour, and so
Okay.
we have to wrap this up. But thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. And listeners, I'm going to drop articles and photos, and there's going to be a whole other show online that you can see. And we will be hearing from Irvin again soon. We will be showing hopefully his new garden in 2025. So
Be a fun thing to do.
absolutely.
Keep us busy and out of trouble.
Absolutely. So, thanks again, and
Thank you.
yes,
See you in the garden someday.
see you in the